Welcome to Xerox Office Hours. This is the first Xerox Office Hours of 2025. I think the last one of these was probably in December. It was right before Christmas break when I kind of wanted to show off some of the new look and feel for Xerox 1.0. But here we are. It's April 4th as I'm recording this, and Xerox 1.0 is out. We've sort of soft launched it. We've sort of soft launched it, but we haven't really done a lot of telling people that it exists. Just kind of rolled it out. One of the nice things about the way we've rolled out this version of Xerox and what we'll probably do for major Xerox changes, like breaking changes going forward, as you can see that I've actually got open the URL api-v1.xerox.io. If I go to api.xerox.io, you can see that the old 0.4 UI is still running there. So one of the nice things about the way we're launching 1.0 is that you can sort of slow roll yourself over to 1.0 if you're a current 0.4 user and you want to migrate. We're going to be running them in parallel. I don't think we've decided on how long quite yet. I would expect it to be at least a month or so. It's not going to be indefinitely, but it will be for at least some number of weeks. We'll make sure that 0.4 is available, and then we're actually keeping track of how much use there is on the 0.4 API endpoint versus the 1.0 endpoint. And I would expect that 1.0 will the 1.0 URL will stay around, and the 0 will end up retiring api.xerox.io at some point in the future. So yeah, one other little. So I'm currently in my local environment running Xerox 1.0, and it's my local developer build. This is my workstation that I work on Xerox on. This is my local build, but it's effectively exactly the same as 101. So one of the things that came up in the process of doing this parallel API endpoint thing is we realized that people would need some way to migrate existing environments over to the new endpoint. So there's a new Xerox rebase command. You can do Xerox rebase. Like if for some reason you've got a 0.4 enabled environment and you run into an error that looks like this, right? You'll get an error about error accessing API endpoint, API Xerox.io post client version check. It'll complain about that. You'll get a 404. If you see that, you've almost certainly got an enabled Xerox environment from that you enabled with 0.4, and you're hitting it with a 1.0 client of some kind. So what you would do in that case is you do a Xerox rebase API endpoint API v1 Xerox.io. And what that'll do is it'll basically take your existing enabled environment and rewrite the endpoint URL so that it'll work with the new client. And the nice thing about that is if for some reason you got into 1.0 and you decided you needed to roll back to 0.4 for some reason, you could rebase it back to api.xerox.io and then use your old binary, and it should work exactly the same way as it always has. There's also a fancy new rebase account token where you can, if for some reason you need to regenerate your account token, you can rebase your account token for an enabled environment, and it will take care of editing the local environment.json for you and making sure it's up to date, which is kind of nice quality of life thing. But yeah, I would expect going forward that we're going to end up managing major breaking changes with a new API endpoint. How we're going to do that, in this case, one of the nice things about the delta between 0.4 and 1.0 is that the only changes made to the database for 1.0 are additive. So we're able to run parallel Xerox controllers, and that's how we're doing that in production. But we'll figure out ways to make that work going forward, because that seems to be a really good model for us to use for allowing users to sort of upgrade with a grace window, basically. So yeah, so this is what the new API console looks like, and like I think we're trying to streamline the terminology for 1.0 also. I think we called this the web console in 0.4. I'm calling it the API console. When we talk about the new Xerox agent, there's a new Xerox agent console. And those, all the UIs are a console at this point of some kind or another, but this is the API console. You'll see that it looks fairly different than the old version. The menu bar is streamlined a little bit. There's no more drop down menu with the enable your environment, all that sort of stuff. It's now all sort of in this new click here to get started wizard, this getting started wizard. It has links to the documentation for how you go ahead and get a binary into your system as a first step, and it handles like all the different flavors that we currently support. And then you can, it's got the enable command you're looking for is right there. You basically hit paste and enable your environment, and away you go. You'll see these things will get green check marks like you've completed those. And then if you're a new user, it gives you a handy share command that should work for pretty much anybody. It just shares the current directory using the web backend mode, right? And you notice in my environment, I don't have a TUI, and that's because if I do a Xerox status, there's a new config headless, and I've got mine set to true. You can see it's sources config. So you can, if I tend to do a lot of development, and I want to look at the logs, and I want the headless mode. So I now it defaults in my environment to headless true. But if we turn it off, we could do Xerox config unset headless. Right, we run it again, you'll get the TUI, just like you would anywhere else. And you can see that the wizard knows when you're running the share. And yeah, so that's, I would expect that this wizard concept will be, this wizard concept is going to end up growing in the future. I'm kind of envisioning this catalog of different recipes that we'll end up supporting. Like if you want to run a Minecraft server, we'll have a wizard that will walk you through the various components to make that work, and hopefully provide some level of, checking for making sure each step things are operating the way they're supposed to. If you're want to protect a public website, like you want to host it on a secure way using Xerox. We'll have recipes for those kinds of things, point-to-point VPNs. And I would even, I'm kind of even hoping we'll end up having a ability for community contributions, so that we'll have a whole catalog of various recipes of things you can do with Xerox. So, but for now, we've got this one wizard, and it's sort of a taste of things to come. You notice the big giant green button turned into the big giant obnoxious green button turned into a slightly smaller obnoxious green button. So yeah, so that's basically the new getting started wizard. This UI is now bimodal, so it actually supports a tabular view, which is new for 1.0, and it supports this traditional visualizer view. The new visualizer, as of this version 1.01, doesn't allow you to drag and doesn't have the fancy force simulation like the old 0.4 version does. I might put that back at some point, but for now it's less likely to get messed up, and probably a little easier for people to understand. If you end up losing your place in it, you can always just click this recenter button and it will sort you out. It's got this nice little mini map that you can drag around. Selections work the way they always did. Like you can select something and see the details of it. You can see what's going on where, what this is. You click on something, this is your Xerox account, this is an environment with a host address, blah 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 blah. It tries to be a little more specific about what's going on. One nice thing about this too is if I do that same Xerox share public, right, and I copy this URL, right, and I take that and I put it over here, and I access this, and then I close it, you'll see that the traffic will show up. So in fact, let's just take this and copy link address, right? Actually, let's do Xerox config set API set headless true, and then we're going to do Xerox share public b web dot, just to share my current directory, right? And if I take this URL and I curl it a few times, right? If I just keep curling this, you'll see the traffic will show up over here as a spark line, which is kind of nice. And if I switch to the tabular mode, I can actually sort by activity and actually see exactly what's going on with what, which is kind of slick. In fact, I can do a Xerox. There's a new canary, test canary. I think it's public proxy. Iterations 10,000, say loopers 2, min pacing 1 second, max pacing 30 seconds, just to generate some traffic basically. And this gives us a nice top-like view, which is kind of handy. I would expect that this looper will overtake the public share in no time. In fact, let's speed it up a little bit. Yeah, it takes a second because that pacing was probably, I don't know, 20 seconds or something. But if we switch that to a much smaller value, let's say 3 seconds. Public proxy share with share token, yada, yada, yada. Same thing. Reservation ephemeral. I tried to make the new data views a little cleaner and nicer. There's a new font now, which is kind of nice. Yeah, just tried to polish things up a little bit. So yeah, so that's basically the gist of it. So there's a hotkey. It's control backtick. If you switch between the two modes, you can choose control backtick. But yeah, there's a nice new top view, which is kind of slick. In fact, let's make this. Let's use a bigger. Is it moon payload? Yep. We'll say. So yeah, so the spark lines show up in the actual items that are receiving the traffic and dealing with the traffic. And yeah, that's basically what the new API console looks like. It's got metrics views built in. All the actions for things are like if you select the thing, like an environment, you can see release environment metrics. If we go back to our account, you can see account metrics. Change password, regenerate account token. All of the things that were in the 0.4 UI are there in the 1.08 UI. So yeah, so that's basically that. This is now all nice TypeScript. It's React. It's React like it always was. It's no longer a create React app anymore. Now it's built using Vite. So I think the stack that things are running on is a lot nicer and cleaner, and we're set up much better for the future. Those kinds of things. So the star of the show is now this new zrok agent. The nice thing about that is that if you're a heavy zrok user, you've definitely probably had multiple zrok processes running before for multiple shares or accesses. Zrok 1.0 makes that a lot easier with the new zrok agent. And the zrok agent is sort of a centralized manager for all of your zrok processes that are tied to an environment. So to use it, I mean, if you're a regular CLI user, you can just do a zrok agent start. And there you go, you're running an agent. So, to illustrate this really clearly, the zrok CLI is set up with a new sort of bimodal approach. If you're not running an agent, it works exactly the way it always did, right? So if I do a zrok share, it launches a process that hosts that share. You can keep it in a terminal window just like you always have. That all works exactly the same. But watch what happens when I run this agent. So if I run the same share now that I got the agent started, you'll see the agent is actually running that process for us, and it returns the information about the new share, right? So if I do a curl and I take this URL, right? There's our share. And that, and if we do a PS, right, and we grep for zrok, you can see there's a zrok agent process, and now there's a new, there's our share process is running. It's got this new flag subordinate. So the agent is now managing the zrok process for us. And we can have as many as we want. We can do zrok share, private, localhost 8080, right? And then it will release our terminal again. And there we go. And we do a zrok PS again, and we'll see that we've got, multiple zrok processes running. There's a new agent. There's a whole tree of agent commands. Console, release, start, status, and version. So if we do zrok agent status, you can see we've got 2 shares running. It's as simple as doing zrok agent release share, and then I can get rid of this one. What was it upset about? Zrok agent release. Did I type something wrong? Oh, agent. Yeah. Like, what did I do? Release share, that share, zrok agent status. Now we're down to 1 share. You can see that the console is updated. We can do zrok agent release, share that one, zrok agent status. Oops. And there we go. We got an empty agent again. If we do a zrok reserve public name testing backend mode web, home Michael, right? We create a reserve share, and we do a zrok share reserved testing, right? We've got our reserve share running, right? So if I do curl https testing.share.zrok.io, right? I get my output like I expect. And now if I terminate my agent, now the share I'm going to get a 404 instead, right? And if I start my agent back up, it will automatically restart that reserve share for me. So if I do a curl now I'm going to get my data again. So now all you've got to run is if you're using reserve shares or private accesses, the agent will automatically restart those for you. So it's the beginning of a whole bunch of convenience features that make dealing with this much easier. And this works great in desktop environments. Like if you're running a traditional terminal environment and you using this for development resources, it works great. If you're running a production environment and you want to front a bunch of want to protect a bunch of publicly exposed web servers, this is all set up with Windows service wrappers, and now we've got Linux packages that deal with setting up these agent processes for you system wide or user space, whichever way you want to run things. But that's the foundation of a bunch of interesting stuff. The other nice thing that comes out of this is there's also a new zrok agent console command, which I'm not going to run. But if you run console, I'm not going to run it. It's going to pop up in the wrong web browser. But if I enter the that's the this is my agent console. So this is literally the same status as this, right? And the nice thing about this is I can actually create shares through here. So I can say public proxy, target localhost 9090, right? I can actually create a share here, right? So there's a new share. I can actually create an access. I could say testing and bind it to 127.0.1 on port that, right? Now I've got a testing access here, right? I can manage these things here. I can get rid of them. And this agent console is just basically a proof of concept at this point. It's on my short to medium term priority list to sort of further expand and refine this new UI. But the nice thing about that is it's going to, if you don't want to interact with the terminal windows to do your sharing, you can literally just start an agent, hit your console, and create a share. So I can say public web, right? And say home Michael. And then I can literally hit this URL and it works, right? And then get rid of the share. So this is the start of things to come. One of the things that's coming up that's a super powerful feature is it doesn't exist yet, but there's going to be a zrok agent enroll command. And what you'll end up doing is you'll end up going to your console in your like this environment. There'll be a new button where you say, I want to enroll an agent, right? I want to enroll the agent for this environment, and it'll give you a code, and you'll basically put that code here. And then once you've done that, it will securely use the OpenZD overlay to allow you to control the shares and accesses in this environment from the centralized API console. So if you want, you need to get into an environment and you don't have a share to let you do that, you could create that through the central API if the agent's enrolled. And that's completely opt-in and opt-out. You don't have to use that if you don't want it. You could not enroll your agent and only control it locally. That'll work exactly the same as you always wanted. It doesn't really... it'll be using ZD to communicate with the agent so that there's no additional, you're not changing your security posture of your firewall or anything like that. So yeah, that's basically the agent in a nutshell. A lot of interesting things to come with that. I think people are gonna. I think when we get that to an appropriate level of polish, that will really be a nice thing for a lot of people. The Canary infrastructure is continuing to get refined. I think managing the performance of the production environment and trying to improve the quality of the offering overall is a very high priority for us. And I think there's a bunch of really interesting things on the medium-term roadmap for zrok. the agent enroll thing is useful. The completed API console will be a big deal. One of the things I really want to kind of get to, hopefully soon, is some sort of a concept of namespaces for reservation names, right? So right now, there's only when you want to do a Xerox share, you want to do a Xerox reserve and give it a name. That namespace is one namespace that everybody's basically sort of pulling names out of. Um, I think going forward, we'll end up having some concept of separating reservation namespaces away from the front ends and things that they're attached to. I think there's some things we can do to sort of allow everybody to have a testing dot some subdomain dot share.xerox.io. I think there's some things we can do there. This is sort of a me thing, but I'm kind of hoping we can get some time set aside to improve drives, the Xerox drives functionality. I think there's still a ton of stuff we need to finish to sort of show the value of why that's actually very powerful. I think having upload boxes, having ephemeral file shares where you want to send somebody some data or receive some data, or you want to transfer something between use a magic wormhole style transfer between two systems. I think there's a bunch of things we can do there that could be really useful. That's coming. Declarative sharing is coming. So if we do a Xerox share reserve testing, right? And we let our agent run that for us, agent status, it's running that reserve share. What actually happens behind the covers, right? So if I stop this agent and restart it, you'll see it'll restart that share for me. What's actually happening there is in the .xerox directory, there's an agent registry now. And that basically is a document that describes the reserve shares and private accesses that you want the agent to manage for you. I think this sort of concept can be elaborated using YAML or something a little bit more user-friendly than a JSON file. But you could describe, combinations of resources that need to be managed as a group and have like a Xerox compose command that would do that for you. So especially with the agent, it would just manage that whole group through the agent for you. Bunch of useful things we can do there. One of the things that's necessary in the API console for Xerox at some point is some sort of notion of like an event timeline, so you can see what happened over time. That's coming. It's sort of a known issue that we need to find better ways to communicate with our end users. So I think having a better notification system is coming, maybe with even the ability to sort of, insert log messages into the clients, things like that. Just some ways to let users know about things like, hey, there's a new version of Xerox available, some of that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things people have been asking for a while too is improved like local HTTP and debugging interfaces, so you can actually inspect traffic a little bit more for development, some of those kinds of things. Those things are coming. And then obviously with the new OpenZD HA stuff coming, like the HA control plane, that integrating that into Xerox is super, super important. I think it's mostly just ensuring that it works correctly more than anything, and maybe some minor changes, but nothing substantial. So yeah, so that's basically a quick tour through Xerox 1.0. And I'll be honest with you, normally I try and do these as a one take. Like I sort of pride myself on just like hitting record and just letting it rip. And I want to say this is probably my fourth attempt at this. I just ended up having some stuff in it. I'm like, I gotta start over. So I did. So if this one drags a little bit in places, that's probably, that's probably why. But hopefully now that, the big ball of getting the initial 1.0 stuff it's been handled, I can get back to putting smaller and more frequent Xerox Office Hours videos out. So yeah, sorry it's been so long. Thank you for watching all of this, and let us know if you have any questions or comments, or let us know what you think about 1.0. And if you like what we do with this stuff, it means the world to us whenever you star the Xerox repo. Like that's a huge thing. Tell your friends about it if you find it useful. That's also a huge thing. And then if you're a super user and you find it useful in your workflow, signing up for an account on My Xerox.io, that's also a powerful thing that helps us a ton. So My Xerox is one of those things that's probably going to be getting some attention over this year. My Xerox is basically NetFoundry's portal for managing the payment process and the paid features for the Xerox.io portal. So if you run into My Xerox, that's basically the payment system for setting up accounts for the Xerox.io system, basically. Anyways, happy 2025. Let us know what we can do to make Xerox even better for you. All right, talk to you next time. Bye.